So let's talk about the question that doesn't get asked out loud. Okay? Now, there are moments that many of us experience, but rarely say out loud. And it doesn't usually happen during a crisis, and it doesn't happen or come with tears or with waterworks. It often shows up in the middle of an ordinary day. So you might be doing something simple like the dishes, laundry, driving, yes. You might even be scrolling on your phone or just sitting in silence for a rare second. And then a thought pops up in your mind, right? A quiet, uncomfortable, hard to explain question. Is this it? Now, not in a dramatic way and not in a life crisis kind of way, but in a subtle, almost confusing way, because nothing is technically wrong, but something just doesn't feel right. And that gap between fine and not fine is where a lot of us quietly live, quietly exist. And today I want to talk about that space. Now, it's not to fix it, and it's not to rush past it, but instead to understand it, right? Because once you understand it, you actually stop blaming yourself for it. So why does a slow disappearance happen and we don't notice it? No one notices it. Well, most women, most of us, we don't lose ourselves suddenly. No, that doesn't happen. There is no one single moment that you can define or that you can pinpoint where you wake up and think, I'm no longer me. No. Instead, it happens in fragments. It happens slowly. Tiny decisions, tiny adjustments, tiny sacrifices that feel too small to matter in the moment, right? And what happens is you don't take time for yourself because someone needs something. Well, you don't do things that you enjoy because you're tired. You don't rest, even though you're tired. You don't rest because there's still more that you need to finish. There's still more that needs to be done. And then, of course, you don't say what you need because it feels easier not to. And none of these moments feel significant alone. When you take each one, it doesn't feel significant alone. But when you put them together, all together, they create a distance. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not distance from your life, but distance from yourself. Okay? So how does life become all about reacting? How does our life become all about reacting? So at some point, many moms, many of us stop living from intention, okay? We start living from a reaction. Well, you wake up and you feel like you're already behind. You're already needed. You're already responsible. You're already in motion before you've even checked in with yourself. And this is just when you wake up. The day becomes a series of responses. What does everyone need? What needs fixing? What needs doing? What needs remembering? And guess what? Slowly, you stop asking these questions. What do I need? What do I feel? What do I want? Now, it's not because you don't matter. It's not because you believe you don't matter. It's because there's actually no space in your busy life. There's no space left for you to ask these questions about yourself. So, what's going on with this identity shift? How come nobody prepares us? How come we know nothing about it? Well, first of all, motherhood, as you well know it, doesn't just change your schedule. Okay. It changes your attention. And of course, your attention changes identity. Now, if your attention is constantly outward, your identity slowly follows. So you become the helper, the organizer, the caretaker, the emotional support, the planner, the default problem solver, the detective. Now, while all those roles are meaningful, and I know we embrace them with joy because it's for our loved ones, they're not the whole of who you are. Okay? And over time, you start to feel like you're only a version of yourself, that only a version of yourself exists. It's part of you. You're not whole anymore. And this is where confusion begins, okay? Because on paper, when somebody looking in at your life is full, right? But internally, inside you, in your deepest personal thought, you feel less and less like yourself. So what keeps us stuck there? What keeps you stuck there? Now, one of the biggest barriers to reconnection is not time. We all think it's time because we're like, I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. It's actually guilt. The moment you turn toward yourself, guilt enters. You start thinking or saying, you should be doing something else. Or, you don't have time for this. How about other people need you? Or this one. Self-focus is selfish. So what do you do? Well, what you can only do. You move away from yourself again and again and again. And not because you want to, but because it feels easier than carrying that guilt around. Right? And over time, this sadly becomes automatic. You don't even, you stop even checking in with yourself because the guilt arrives before your awareness does. Before you start reflecting on it, guilt already comes in. So how about the moment you realize you don't know yourself anymore? When does that happen? Now, there's a question that often exposes this disconnect. And of course, it doesn't happen suddenly. It happens in those quiet moments or maybe stressful moments of when you're starting to feel resentful. But when you have that moment, you start asking yourself this question: what do I want? Now, this is a question that often exposes your disconnect. What do I want? Now, it's not about big life goals, dreams, although those are good. It's not about your responsibilities because you are already doing your responsibilities. You're working on that. This is about just you. What do I want? Not what does my family want? What are my dreams? What are our goals? What do I want? Now, in that moment, many of us freeze. Now, it's not because we don't have desires. We do. But because we haven't had to access to reflect on them in a long time, right? It's like opening a door that hasn't been used in years. It doesn't swing open easily, right? There's rust, there's maybe things in front of it or inside, you don't want to fall out, whatever. It doesn't open smoothly. Now, not because nothing is behind it, but because it hasn't been touched, right? So, for example, when I would be asked, what I would want for my birthday or any special occasion, I would be like, what do I want? What do I want? What do I want? And I have no real answer, right? Because I didn't even think to have a list or something in my mind in the back of my head of like, ooh, this is what I would like. This is what I would want, because I've stopped cataloging that. I have stopped thinking of what I wanted to, what I was, what's on my wish list, right? I couldn't think of anything. But now it's like, what did I want? Of course, now the other issue is actually speaking it. But we'll come to that another day. So I want you to just realize that this is not failure. Not being able to answer that question is not failure. And I don't want you to take it as that you have failed, that you were missing something, or that you were not all together, or you don't know your mind. This is about being disconnected. This is about disconnection. Now, this is the part where I want you to pay attention. You are not broken. You are not behind. And you are definitely not failing at womanhood or motherhood or life just because you cannot answer that question. You are experiencing disconnection. And disconnection, fortunately, is not permanent. Now, not to be confused, it is not identity. It's not your identity. It is a pattern, okay? And as we know, patterns can shift. Habits can shift. Just so you know, reconnection does not start big. And many of us think, we tell ourselves, I need a full reset. Now, resets can help, but not needed. Not to start. I need time away. Time is precious. You don't need all that much time. You don't need to go away for that. Or how about, I need to fix my life first? Well, I mean, you could do that. The problem is, if you try to fix your life, you're never going to start because there's always something that needs to be done, always something you want to accomplish. Because life is not, it doesn't stand still. It's not stagnant. It keeps on moving on, and you keep on moving on along with it. So saying you want to fix your life first, you may as well say, I don't want to start. But here's the thing. Disconnection actually doesn't begin with those big decisions. It doesn't begin there. It begins much smaller. It begins with noticing, with pausing, with asking simple questions. Now, not to solve the questions, but to actually start hearing yourself again, to start understanding yourself again, to start paying attention to how you would think, how you would approach to answer that. Because yes, you can answer the question, but how you arrive to answering the question in itself is the start, it's the beginning, because now you're like, oh my word, it's almost like a new world has opened up, right? So this is the beginning of returning to yourself. Now, reconnection sounds like this, right? It's like, what am I feeling right now? You're not answering the question, but what are you feeling right now? Are you realizing that, wait a minute, how come I don't know what I want? When did this happen? Okay, here's another thing reconnection feels like or sounds like. What feels heavy right now? What's weighing you down? What's keeping you from moving forward in your personal enjoyment, personal development, personal goals? How about what feels missing or incomplete? About what part of me have I been ignoring? Once you answer those questions, you're getting back to yourself. And okay, of course, at first, those answers might feel unclear, but that's okay. I just want you to remember that you are not trying to fix anything. Okay? You're just trying to hear yourself again. You're trying to understand yourself again. You're trying to crack open that door and get your mental processes thinking about you. You alone. You. Not to be selfish, but to see where you are. Right? And let me just let you know. You cannot reconnect with someone you are not listening to, right? So when you have a friend that you haven't seen in a long time, you can't really reconnect with them until you get to know them, right? You ask them questions, you catch up on what's been going on with their life and what new interests they have, so on and so forth. So now you're reconnecting. Do the same for yourself. If you cannot reconnect with somebody else without listening to them, then you cannot reconnect to yourself without listening to yourself. Okay? Now, this is why I am going to be putting up a workshop. I'm going to be putting together a workshop in the next coming weeks. And it's not because there's something wrong with us, but because so many of us moms are living in that quiet space, in that quiet disconnection, in that quiet, without quiet guilt, without realizing that it has a name. Okay? So in this workshop, we're going to be going through things slowly, and we're going to be looking at what creates this feeling of disconnection. Okay? We're going to gently explore guilt, identity, emotional overload, and we're going to begin creating small ways to reconnect with ourselves again. Okay? Without pressure, without guilt, and without needing a full life makeover. Nope. You're going to start small, and you're going to start where you are. Now, if you've been feeling like something's been missing in your life, I don't want you to rush to fix it. Yes, sometimes we're like, oh, so that's what's going on, and you rush and you try to fix it. But instead, I want you to do this. I want you to get curious about it, to start to understand where it's coming from, where it started, what's going on, instead of fixing it first. Because yes, you can fix it, but if you don't understand everything else behind it, it'll be very easy for you to slip back into disconnection. Okay? Because sometimes that feeling of disconnection, it isn't a warning. It's not a warning that, oh, I need to fix this right now. I'm in danger, danger, danger. No, it's an invitation not to become someone new, but to come back to yourself one small moment at a time. Okay? So until next time,